30 seconds and counting. Team.
Hey, what's good, guys? It's Clutch here, and Essam here back with another video. And I'm joined here with Juan. And for today, we're gonna be talking about the Texans. We're gonna be discussing a little bit about the team, how it's looking after OTAs. Of course, with minicamp coming up here, within a week or so, we're gonna be talking about how the team has looked so far through OTAs, who we think their starters are gonna be. I guess week one going into the preseason, so in a couple months, and what we've been hearing a little bit. So I'm gonna start off with the defense first. So the defense, overall, we haven't heard too much. And an OTA is really not going to get too much of a good look at who the starters are going to be. There's going to be a little bit of an estimated look. So we're probably going to be running a 4-3 defense. I don't think we're going to be running too much Tampa 2 anymore. I know Lovie Smith, he comes from that Tampa 2 defense. Personally, I don't think we're going to be running it that much anymore. Of course, we got Derek Stingley, the number 3 overall draft pick. He's mainly a man corner. Obviously, he can play a little bit of zone. But in LSU, when he was with LSU, and of course they had that title run in 2019, that LSU defense ran a lot of man-to-man coverage, and it was cover one defense. They had Grant Delpit playing deep safety, and I'm not sure who their other safety was, but he was pretty much just playing in the box. And guess what? We have Jalen Petrie, who can do exactly just that. Jalen Petrie has the ability to play in the box in a cover one type of defense with maybe either one of MJ Stewart or Eric Murray playing deep safety. So those are your two safeties right there. It's, in my opinion, what I think is going to look like is going to be cover one, man across the board. Cornerbacks, Derek Stingley, of course, cornerback 1. Steven Nelson, cornerback 2. And in the slot, it's going to be a great training camp battle between Tavierre Thomas and, of course, Desmond King for the slot position. Those are two guys. They're both really, really good corners. Tavierre has a little bit of a little bit of a benefit on the age factor. I think he's still 25, 26, and Desmond King 28, 29-ish. So if we want to go for the more youth type of thing, Tavierre Thomas is probably going to start in the slot. But better overall is probably Desmond King. But that's pretty much your secondary. So Jalen Petrie being that box safety, more so around closer to the football. One of MJ Stewart or Eric Murray playing deep. Whoever the Texans, see more feasible for that defense. And now let's get into the linebacker core. So our linebackers, that's where it gets pretty interesting. Texans made fun of a lot last offseason for signing pretty much every non-star linebacker, I guess. They signed I think it was over 20 or so linebackers last year. It was pretty crazy.
A lot of depth at that position.
Yeah, a ton of depth. Yeah, a lot of training camp battles, depth, a bunch of that. Yeah, the linebacker core this year is going to be, in my opinion, much different. We're probably going to cut a lot of these guys, but the 3 starters that I think are going to be is going to be Christian Kirksey mainly as that middle linebacker, Kamu Grugier-Hill as that Sam linebacker, and of course, rookie linebacker Christian Harris from Alabama. He's probably going to be starting next to Kamu, and that's what I think he's going to look like. There's been some reports that Christian Harris has been starting or running with the ones through OTAs. He's been going in there, filling in a little bit. Of course, Kamu Grugier-Hill, he's missed most of OTAs. He had an offseason surgery, so he hasn't really been able to participate much. And it's been Wallow kind of filling in for him, more so than Kirksey. But I think those are the 3 that are going to start. So it's going to be Kamu, Kirksey, and then, of course, Christian Harris, with Wallow probably subbing in and out for probably all 3 of them at times. He's going to be able to come in and play either middle linebacker or outside linebacker or whatever. So that's pretty much the linebacker core. I really like it. It's a mixture of youth, a little bit of veteran leadership, of course, with Christian Kirksey. Played for quite a few different teams. And then, of course, Kamu Grugier-Hill decided to stay in Houston. Took, I think it was another 1-year contract, I'm pretty sure. So that's nice to see. Had a great season in Houston last year. So that's a pretty solid linebacker core as far as the starters go. I like it. So now let's get into the defensive line. Defensive line, this is where it gets really, really interesting. Of course, we signed a couple of guys, older guys, more so, from the Buffalo Bills through the last, month of free agency. Those 2 guys are Mario Addison, Jerry Hughes, and then, of course, we signed Rasheem Green. He's one of those guys that are going to come in here and definitely be able to battle out for a starting job. Rasheem Green, he's still pretty young. He's only 24, I believe. And he had a pretty underrated season last year. Nothing, of course, over the top. but still 24. Had some pretty good production last year. Probably going to be able to take over that defensive end spot across from Jonathan Grenard. So at defensive ends, I think it's going to be Grenard on one end with Green on the other. Probably Grenard on the strong side and Green on the weak side of the defensive line. And then for the defensive tackles, the interior presence, I think it's gonna have to be Malik Collins. Of course, you just paid him. I think it was a 3-year contract, 26 million or somewhere around that range. Pretty solid contract. I mean, I like it. Very good player. Performed great for Houston last year. Actually, one of those underrated signings. He's played with the Raiders and Cowboys formerly. I love the pickup from the start, and he's continuing in Houston for another season. So, getting some more players with familiarity and part of the system, probably gonna be running a little bit of a different defensive scheme, as I mentioned earlier. But Malik Collins at that as that 3 tech, and then for the run stuff in defensive tackle, it could go a couple of different ways. Of course, we have Roy Lopez probably gonna get the start, but if a different guy like maybe Thomas Booker, I know he's more of a shiftier guy, a guy that's probably gonna be able to play outside at times. But I feel like Thomas Booker, if he has a good camp, he can definitely start as a rookie. But yeah, the defensive line is probably it's very interesting. You can get a lot of different looks. I think the only thing that's almost set in stone is the defensive ends with Grenard and Green. But yeah, Juan, do you want to talk about the offense now?
Yeah, of course, of course. And when I look at this team, I feel like there's just one little inconsistency. And it's not really like an inconsistency per se, but it's like a reoccurring problem. I feel with teams trying to rebuild. And it's just that when I look at the roster chart, at least for offense, I don't see a lot of strengths, but yet I don't see a lot of weaknesses. It feels almost like if it's good enough, which obviously it isn't, right? I mean, you look at the QB depth chart. I mean, you got Davis Mills, someone named Allen. I haven't looked at a lot of his tape either, and it's good enough. I mean, it doesn't look like it's great. I mean, obviously they did some stuff over the NFL draft and free agency, of course, to give depth. But honestly, I think this is a better team. I mean, on both sides of the ball. I mean, compared to last year. Last year was just a complete mess. But offensively, I just want to go over, wide receiver, and I think it's going to be underrated. Okay, because you got somebody like Brandon Cooks. He's going to be here for probably a couple more years. I really like him. Being with Davis Mills. The partnership, and I mean, then you also got John Metchi. I think that's his name. I lost his name for a second, but
Yeah,
I think
John.
I think he's gonna be great. I think he's gonna be a stud. Like my money's on him because I was looking at some of his tape and he's fast. He's sneaky fast. I mean, like you see him running and he's just going from side to side, just in a snap. And I think injuries can really ruin draft stock, in a way that sometimes you can't explain, right? Because like 1 second he's like a top 10 prospect, and then he falls into the second round, which then you pretty much have to take him because the chances that he comes back from injury, they're pretty high, at least for this case. And I think he's going to really bolster that unit that needed some help last year. Didn't have a lot of speed. I could see some of the game tape where Davis Mills was making really good throws and getting the passes down, but they just couldn't get the yards after catch because we didn't have guys that could, run at the full field. And I think Metchi really adds that, complexity and that rush that this team needs. And for tight end, I mean, I think we signed somebody else a couple of days ago for pretty much a practice squad. But then again, we have Brevin Jordan, and I'm high on this kid too. I think he's going to be a stud as well, just because I think he can truly develop into a good blocker. I mean, obviously, he's more of a catching tight end, at least from the game tape that I've seen. But I think he's going to develop into that two-way threat where you need an extra man right there to block. And what are your opinions on Brevin Jordan? Do you think he's
Oh
going to be
yeah,
that guy?
Personally, I really, really like Brevin Jordan. He's probably going to be, of course, our starting tight end. I know we did resign Pharaoh Brown. We resigned him, I
Yeah,
think, to a 2-year deal. I want to say, but I mean, he's not that. He's not going to take Brevin Jordan's job away. Brevin
yeah. Of
Jordan, of
course he's
course,
not.
yeah, he's better. He's younger on that longer deal, 4-year deal, rookie deal. Yeah, I think Brevin is going to be special for us. It's going to be our franchise tight end. I think it's still a little bit too early to say. I think he
Yeah.
definitely has to get better blocking. But yeah, I really like
I mean, yeah, obviously it's a bit too early. And I think that's like the main thing with this group. I mean, we signed a lot of guys in the draft that I think have that potential to be franchise guys. But at the end of the day, this is their first year, right? I mean, Nick Casario said something along the lines like, college doesn't matter anymore, right? It doesn't, because at the end of the day, people are going to judge you based on your NFL results now. Whatever you did in college that was impressive, I mean, the defense of the opposing team won't really care because they're going to try to shut you down any way possible. But I think this team has a chance to prove itself. And somebody that I want to draw attention to, and I'm going to shift over to the offensive line, going to be Austin Deculus. I talked about him in the LSU's Iron Man video, and I believe in the guy. I mean, I'm not an LSU fan, but I did see a lot of their games, and he was just always there. He was always getting involved. Of course, there's some issues, to fix around with him. I mean, with almost every prospect in the late rounds, but I think he has that potential to be a starter if things don't work out very well in the offensive line early on in the year. You can see some rotations, right? That's what rebuilding teams do. Let the young guys lead the charge, and I think he could be one of those guys that you see in a rotation. For maybe later on in the year, like week 10. I could definitely see him getting some playing action, maybe even a couple starts, because I said this in the Iron Man video where, you play the amount of games you do at LSU, a really good school in its own right. And if you play just that many amount of games, you're not getting injured. That's a big plus, especially for offensive line. And he's a big man. Like, he has a really big wingspan. I can't bring it off the top of my head right now, but he's big. And I think that, especially at, where he is right now, offensive line, always needs some extra depth. And I think whenever you can add a guy like that, late rounds, and of course he has some value, especially just because of his material, what he already has. I really like it. And the offensive line, I think it's honestly the best part of our offense right now. I mean, Laramie Tunsil, I think he's going to be a stud. I mean, he already is a stud, but I think he's going to have a really good year. Just personally because last year he was injured, right? And we gave up a lot of picks for him when we got him, but I don't think it was worth it at the end of the day. But we're going to try to juice that value. And I mean, now to QB, Davis Mills. I'm high on him. I know other people aren't, but I honestly think that those mechanical issues that we saw last year, they could be fixed pretty easily in OTAs. I mean, not easily, but I think a lot of it has been, addressed. And I think that's the most important thing to do right now at this stage. Just getting the mechanics now, thinking about it before it actually matters. And honestly, I think this year is going to take a step forward because last year was just crazy for all of us, as fans. I mean, the Deshaun Watson drama, finally it ended, at least for us. But I mean, this year it feels a lot more clearer. I mean, we know that Davis Mills is probably going to be the starting quarterback come opening day. I mean, unless there's like a huge change or a blockbuster trade, which I mean probably isn't going to happen. I think the QB room is pretty much staying where it is. But honestly, I think that this receiver core, along with Brevin Jordan, which Davis Mills start to use a lot more often later on in the year. I mean, they're going to catch passes. Davis Mills can throw it downfield. And I think, honestly, the step for him to take next year is definitely going to be like he did it later on in the year to slow it down. I mean, don't get ahead of yourself. And I mean, he wouldn't really do it a lot. Like, he wouldn't look like he's stressed, but I think, honestly, as a rookie, you can tell sometimes when they're rushed, when they just don't feel comfortable. And I think that's really important for any second-year QB to just slow it down. And I think that he has, at least in that time frame that he has, whenever he didn't start a lot of games, like he was rushed into action, right? And even though he's calm, on the outside, when you get rushed into a situation like that, you're gonna bound to mess stuff up because you rushed. And I think that this year with more calmness and a more developed wide receiver group, along with a better offensive line, and I'm going to talk about the running game, but I think Davis Mills is going to take a step forward. I mean, if you liked what you saw last year, I think you're definitely going to be surprised this year. But honestly, what I'm most excited about has to be the running game now. I mean, Mac, I think, is going to be that dude too. I mean, on the offensive line, well, not offensive line, on the offense in general, I feel like we have a lot of dudes that have the ability to be that guy at the position for 5+ years. And I think it's mainly because, they're young, right? I mean, Marlon Mack is at the prime of his career, even though he had an injury, right? But I think he's going to be great. Rex Burkhead, I don't think he'll be getting as many reps as he did last year. That was crazy. And of course, we got Damien Pierce. And I see what style of running back they were trying to get. He probably wouldn't have been my first running back off the board, but I can definitely see the style of play. And you always want a guy that hustles, right? And if you look at the game tape for Pierce, you're going to see a guy that hustles, always going to fight to get that extra yard. And I feel like that's just really important on a team like the Texans, where you're going to be running a lot. I mean, that's I think Pep Hamilton's philosophy, at least not all the time, but you're going to definitely try to get that run game going to get Davis Mills more comfortable in the pocket, and also being able to adventure with the plays. And honestly, the running back room is looking a lot better. And it feels good, not having to rely on Rex Burkhead, for the last couple of weeks of the season again. And honestly, on the offensive side, it looks better. But like I told you earlier, I think it's a situation of there's no specific strength except for, Brandon Cooks. But there's no weakness either. It's kind of like that weird mid stage that I can see the Texans in, where if everybody performs, where they're expected to perform, we're going to be slightly below average to average at maximum this year. But it's a step forward if you want to get better. Next year, if we do play better than we did this year, we're probably going to get a later draft pick. But at the end, we're still at the point of the rebuild where we'll take good guys at any position available, at least in the next draft, because 2023 is going to be stacked with a lot of talent from the college level. So I feel like you could get by next year, as a slightly below average team and still get a good pick in the NFL draft. So honestly, offensively, looks good for this year if we're trying to achieve a rebuild. You obviously want to see some progress, and I think we got it this year. So those are my thoughts on it.
Yeah, both sides of the ball definitely improved over the offseason, drafts, free agency, coaching wise. Of course, Pep Hamilton, Lovie Smith, he's going to be running. Of course, his head coach, he's still going to be running the defense a little bit. We definitely got better, but of course, so did all of the NFL. I just want to ask you, what do you think? I guess our a very early record prediction. What do you think we're going to be next year?
So how I see this going, okay, is that the team's obviously going to be a lot better this year. I see them overperforming a little bit over everybody's expectations. Davis Mills is going to have a better year this year. Not going to have a crazy jump, but I think it's definitely going to be enough to where the Texans put confidence in him to lead the staff at least for a couple years. I think Metchi is going to be great. I mean, not incredible because Brandon Cooks is going to be that wide receiver number one, but I think he'll definitely be a solid wide receiver number two if he stays healthy. I think the defensive side of the ball will be way more improved. I see them being middle of the pack. Obviously, and I think that with Lovie Smith's philosophy, there's going to be turnovers, obviously, and I see them performing at a max, like at a 7 or 8 win team. And they kind of remind me of the Bengals, a little bit, because I mean, nobody expected them out of this. 1 year after Joe Burrow was out, and they went to the Super Bowl. I mean, so I'm not expecting the Texans to go to the Super Bowl, okay? But I definitely do think that this team's going to overperform. Definitely going to win a couple games, maybe an upset or two like last year. But honestly, it just depends on if the rookies stay healthy and if they produce. Because if every single one of those guys that we drafted performs, at the level that we expect and maybe a little bit more, I mean, that ninth win seems. I mean, it's hard. The NFL's in a crazy spot right now with all these QBs that are throwing dimes and are running, but every game, you can win it, right? Because these are professional athletes, right? And when you have such a good draft like we did, it depends, game by game. If I'm the Texans, I'm going game by game, trying to win each one and see how long that takes you. And I mean, playoff push, I'm not really thinking it, but definitely around the 5, 6, and 7 win region. 8 if we're lucky, and 9 would just be out of my expectations. But it's football, you never know.
Yeah, definitely agree. Definitely agree. I guess in terms of like the Bengals, I kind of agree. I mean, I still do think the Bengals, of course, going into last season, I think they still definitely had much more talent than us. At pretty much every position, they had the former number one pick coming back from a torn ACL. Our quarterback, I mean, he definitely did show promise, but I don't think Davis Mills. Personally, I think Davis Mills is going to have a better year next year. Of course, last year, growing in more to the offensive system, getting more comfortable, getting able to say he's that quarterback one, give that quarterback one reps. Personally, I still think we're still like around a 4 team or a 4 win team. I think our ceiling is probably 6 wins, or our floor is probably 4 wins. Anywhere from 4 to 6 wins in that range. I think it's still pretty good. We can definitely still get a top 3 pick with the 4 win or with the 4 win season. And I think that's what we should definitely aim for. Not necessarily tank. We want to try to win, try to get these players experience, of course, try to not make them, I guess, play bad to get a loss or like we don't want to win too many games and outperform. Like we don't want to play too good and just
I
carry
get what you're
ourselves.
saying.
Yeah,
I think it
yeah, like
honestly it depends on the players that play well. I mean, I think the season's going to be an absolute success if we win, 4 games. I think honestly a fifth game would be completely in the realm of possibility. But most importantly, the rookies show up. The signings show up. I think that's going to be honestly the metric of success for this season is who played out and who didn't. Because I think that honestly, at least in the rebuild stage, is going to matter a lot more than the wins and losses at this point.
yeah, agreed. I think a lot of it's gonna depend on Davis Mills. Davis Mills, if he can really, really improve, we can definitely be, as you were saying, like around a 7-win team. You wouldn't be surprised if they wins possibly. If he can really, really improve, I think he's gonna improve, but not to the point where it's like he's gonna push us over that little hill of becoming a 5, 6, 7-1 team. I think we're still gonna be around 4 to 5, and it's gonna be really, really relying on Davis Mills. And if Davis Mills can get us over 4 wins, we definitely won't be in that quarterback market. We're gonna be in that market probably just, of course, best player available type. But if he isn't, like if we win around 4 games, we have a top 2 pick. It's gonna be kind of hard to see us not going quarterback. But I mean, if he still performs, maybe like a Will Anderson or something like that. But yeah, as far as record prediction, I think still 4 or 5 around there. I feel like that's a fair record prediction.
But
Yeah, anything else you wanna add on to?
yeah, I do want to add on to something. I mean, Davis Mills, I think even if he doesn't turn out to be that starter, I see the pick by the Texans from last year an absolute win in our book, okay? Because you can get a pick in the third round, right? Nobody's expecting much. And you get him to be your starter for 2 years when you're letting the rest of your talent develop and not wasting or at least risking a pick on this QB class that honestly wasn't that good. I consider that a W and even better if he outperforms. And even if he doesn't, I think he's honestly going to be a really, really good backup for the Texans. If your starter, God forbid, gets injured, right? And he's going to be the man to step in. I could completely, put my trust in him that he's going to, not throw the game away. And I think that's honestly the peak for Davis Mills. At least if this year he doesn't progress, I honestly could see him being as like one of the better backups and could be a starter on a couple teams, right now, if we're being honest. But then again, this depends on how the year ends. I mean, who knows? We could be looking back at this, and Davis Mills had, the best year of his career. Nobody saw it coming. But then again, that's just the fun of predictions. I mean, you never know. It's a game, right? And Davis Mills could have the year of his life, and we don't know right now. I think that's what makes football really fun, and I'm excited for this year. Let's see what they got in store for us.
Yeah, and I just add one last thing to that Davis Mills thing. Of course, we drafted him in the 3rd round. Pretty much, if he can become anything, that's a really good win. Like some first-round quarterbacks don't even pan out. Look at Jordan Love. He was drafted in the late 1st round. Still really hasn't even done anything for Green Bay. Of course, he hasn't been given the opportunity. He started a couple games here and there, but he's been a 1st-round pick. When he has played, when he has started, he hasn't looked that good. And Davis Mills being a 3rd-round pick, when he has started in a few games, he has looked really good. So even if he's a backup quarterback, I feel like that's a really good win. You don't really find it's really hard to find quarterbacks. It's super hard to find quarterbacks. It's like one of the hardest things to find in all sports. And on all honesty, you see how many quarterbacks get drafted over the years. It's really, really hard to hit on one. And if Davis Mills, anything can be top tier backup, just a normal backup, low end starter, anything, that's a really big win. You have any more thoughts other than that?
No, I mean, go Texans, go Astros, go Rockets. I already know we're looking for that number 3 pick, and I'm excited for that. But for the Texans, nothing more to say. Now we just got to wait for the preseason and the season, and let's see how this pans out. And this was really fun to do with you.
Yep, of course, same. I feel like it was a very good video. Nice flowing video. Really like that. Of course, go Texans, go all Houston sports. And it's been Clutch Eating and Tim out. Roman at 1. Peace.